All right, we're going to get underway here. Good evening to everybody and good afternoon to some. I think good morning to still others who are joining us. Thanks so much to everybody for joining us from literally all around the world today. I'm Diana Mackay with the Office of the Provost at Aga Khan University, and I'll be moderating the webinar. But first, a few comments to set the stage. A reminder that the session is being recorded, and if we haven't started the record button, please go ahead. We'll be making the recording available on CCIT's website within a few days. The website's at aku.edu/CCIT, with CCIT standing for Critical Creative Innovative Thinking. Second, we have a great group assembled for the webinar, and we can do some really exciting things to help people learn together and connect in useful ways. So I want to explain a few things about the Zoom features that we've enabled today. You will be encouraged to use the chat function, which you should be able to see on your screen there. It's a terrific tool if we use it well with so many people. If you wish, you can introduce yourself by name and organization, particularly if you're interested in networking with others who are participating today. It's a great way to say hello and to express your interests. But given the large audience, I would ask that you keep your chats short and to the point as well. You're also encouraged to use the question and answer function to pose questions to any of our speakers that you might want to have us address in the discussion to follow the opening presentation. And we'll do our best to address your questions during the webinar. So the last thing I mentioned is that you can also connect with us through our email address, ccit@aku.edu, and we can post that address in the chat. It's interesting, the webinar today is accredited by the Accreditation Council for Continuing Medical Education, and anyone who's interested, you can apply for an e-certificate that will be provided after the session. This is the first in a series of innovation-related webinars that my colleagues and I will be hosting over the course of 2021. Our intention is both to showcase innovation at AKU and to welcome presentations by and discussions with innovation experts from other organizations around the world. Our challenge and our opportunity at AKU is an exciting one. Our innovation ecosystem is young, but rapidly maturing. And like all healthy innovation systems, we're operating across a range of spaces, facilities, teams, and activities related to innovation. Today, we'll hear from CCIT, which is representative of what we refer to as our upstream component of the ecosystem. This is the student-led, student-centric, free-thinking, creative, early-stage skunkworks of innovation. During other webinars, we'll focus on the downstream components of innovation. These include patenting, technology transfer, commercialization, scale-up, so on. We also want to showcase in our webinar series some of the remarkable illustrations of AKU's innovation system in action. And this is where it gets so exciting because of the nature of the university. We are straddling 6 countries, 3 continents, doing world-class health science education, research, and community action in extremely resource-constrained settings. And as connected as we are with other entities in the Aga Khan Development Network, we can really offer unparalleled opportunities for built-in innovation and testing within our system. So we have sky-high ambitions. Our horizons are stretched far beyond what we can see, but we're also driven by the imperative to make a difference, and in particular, to find solutions to intractable problems, and to do so urgently in many cases. So you'll get a flavor of some of this during today's discussion and during other webinars as well. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Salim Sayani, who is the chair of AKU's Innovation Committee and the director of our Technology Innovation Support Center, and also the university's Digital Health Resources Center. Salim is fluent in innovation, one might say, having shepherded many innovators and AKU through the latter parts of our innovation ecosystem. He has 2 patents of his own as well, and Salim is appointed by the World Health Organization to serve on its global panel of digital health experts. So Salim, over to you for a few words about our innovation work at AKU.
Thank you, Diana. So I would like to welcome you all to today's session. AKU Innovation Committee is, as Diana mentioned, is pleased to start a series of webinars on innovation to share with this group what we do and how we do it. So that is the gist of it. And Innovation Committee within AKU is a group of people who are focused on doing things differently to improve the outcome. And it has representation from all schools within the university and the institutes. And as we move forward with the series of these webinars, you will know more about it. In today's session, as Diana mentioned, that you will hear about how CCIT is actually changing the culture when it comes to student-led innovations within AKU. And Asad started all that, and I still vividly remember about 5 years ago, it started, and then we did not believe in that. And today, you will see what it has become. So I'm very excited about CCIT's work and the progress that it has made. Now, in future sessions, you will also hear about what AKU is doing when it comes to artificial intelligence in healthcare, innovations in media and communications, innovations in biomedical engineering and mobile applications and intellectual property and patents. So I won't take much of your time. Enjoy the session and have some fun. So Diana, over to you.
Great, thank you very much. So now I'll introduce the others that we have with us today. First, Dr. Asad Mian, who is Associate Professor in Emergency Management and jointly appointed to the Department of Pediatrics and Child Health in Aga Khan University's Medical College. He's the founding director of CCIT, the Critical Creative Innovative Thinking Forum. And I can attest from working with Asad that he is a creative force, especially in driving student-led, student-centered innovation and creativity. We're also joined by Walid Farooqi, who's a former student in the Medical College at Aga Khan University and a former co-director of CCIT. He's joining us today from Boston, Massachusetts, where he's embarking on the next phase of his career, getting his feet wet, I'm told, with such things as building his own YouTube channel and presumably other work that involves earning a living. So we'll look forward to talking to Walid in a moment. Also joining us are Shaista Ayesha, the CEO for Seed Ventures, and Faraz Khan, the founder of Seed Ventures, which is a social entrepreneurship and equity development company. Both Shaista and Faraz have been exceptionally successful in this space, and they've been working closely with CCIT in helping us think through the social impact objectives of innovation. But at this point, what I will do is I will ask Asad to give us a little bit of an introduction to the work that he's been doing over the years to couch our work in innovation within the broader challenges facing those of us that are working in Aga Khan University's medical arena, dealing with and thinking through the context of the burden of death and illness and disease in Pakistan and other similar low-income countries. So Asad, can you tell us a little bit about this aspect of your work and what are some of the challenges facing the burden of disease in Pakistan, and help us set the stage and into the rationale for your work?
Sure. So thank you so much for that kind introduction, Diana, and good evening or good morning, as the case may be, good afternoon, wherever you are. It is indeed quite a privilege and an honor to be here. And I really do believe that the way Diana and then Salim have kind of set the stage, describing the innovation continuum at AKU, I think that kind of really does justice to what this journey has been about. And Salim mentioned CCIT, but I think we're just one entity among loads of other individuals as well. Perhaps they weren't like working within teams, but individuals themselves who've been working at AQ or even in other places for years. So we're really, I think, merely just standing on the shoulders of giants. And so perhaps we're just, contributing somewhat. And I think the more the merrier, and more people that can be onboarded through these events and initiatives, these webinars, it'll be brilliant. And so do reach out to us. And this is just the beginning, really. So Diana, so if it's okay with you, then I'd really kind of like to make the case for the need for innovation in Pakistan and other similar countries. And for that, Walid is quite familiar with my penchant for PowerPoint presentations. And I am the dinosaur in the room already, although I was told that I'm only 18 years old or perhaps 21. But I will show you maybe 2 or 3 slides. So bear with me, because otherwise these numbers, just to talk about numbers without showing you those graphs, I think that might not be the best case scenario. So anyways, so let me share my screen here, and here we go. Let me know if somebody can indicate to me, if, is this visible?
Yes.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. All right. So, So Pakistan, no surprise, has a huge, immense burden of disease. And if I were to like kind of just quickly go over some of the age groups, or who are these individuals who are more at risk, children, children under 5, infant that's under 1 year of age, and neonate, so less than 30 days of age. Those age groups are at exceedingly high risk in Pakistan. In fact, neonatal mortality, or babies who are under 30 days of age, Pakistan ranks #1 in that age group. No surprise that pregnancy and childbirth related issues in women of reproductive age between 15 to 45 years of age, that's one of the highest, biggest problems in that age group as well, in women. And no surprise that the baby that's delivered, or the neonate, is at high risk. So we've talked about children, we've talked about women, mothers, so a maternal, infant, child related issues, huge burden for Pakistan. Then what about surgical access? Huge inequity and disparity. There's a huge disconnect or discrepancy between rural and urban areas. I'm just kind of going, really, I'm just kind of skimming over some of these issues. There are many more issues. So all of these issues combine, and they create a substantial burden on citizens, on health systems, on the government. And if you were to categorize the problems of the country, or diseases, illnesses, disabilities, and you could kind of categorize them into communicable, which are the infectious diseases, the non-communicable diseases such as chronic illnesses such as heart disease, heart attack, strokes, diabetes, mental health issues, and so on. And then you cannot forget injuries, trauma, road traffic accidents, violence, disasters. So collectively, communicable, non-communicable, and trauma is the universe that we are looking at. What this graph is trying to indicate to you is that if you were to think about where one should be allocating resources, so can you kind of divide between what is emergent versus what is non-emergent medical disease? So for low middle income countries such as Pakistan, the majority, almost 60%, is because of emergent medical disease. So these are all your emergencies, your trauma, your disasters, injuries, violence, so on and so forth. And 40%, the remaining 40% or so, is the non-emergent medical diseases, which is flipped. When you look at the bottom bar, which is high income, it's 40%, which is emergent, and 60%, which is non-emergent. So this kind of tells you where you need to be allocating your resources if you want to do something about this. If I haven't kind of convinced you that Pakistan needs to innovate in healthcare, then look at this particular graph. So I'm going to show you current health expenditure. Data has been captured from the Global Health Expenditure Database of the WHO. On the y-axis, you can see health spending per capita in US dollars. And blue over here is Pakistan, and the orange bars are the US. And somebody might argue, well, this is comparing apples to oranges. But if you just bear with me, just look at just for now, just compare the blue versus the orange, and look at 2018 as a case in point. It's about $43 of health spending per capita in Pakistan, and it's crossed $10,000 in the US. So both places need to innovate. For Pakistan, innovation is exceedingly important because you need to go up on health spending per capita. For US, innovation is equally important because they need to go down on health spending per capita. And this is something that, if anybody's interested, and we can do number crunching, but not right now. But just to show you that this is a need globally. Health innovation can help global health. And last slide for now. What this is showing you is on the left is first world standards. So, the fancy devices, the ventilators, incubators, phototherapy machines, ultrasound, and so on and so forth, which are first world, which is considered first world standard of care. And on the right column are low cost innovations around these same kinds of devices. And there's almost a 10x difference. So just as a case in point, ventilators, on the left side, you can see there's a range of $3,000 to $40,000, huge range, but still you can go onto the right side, which is your one breath ventilator that runs on a 12-volt battery, and it's about $300. So look at the huge difference. Low cost innovation can truly be transformative. And that's about it for now. I'm going to hand it back to Diana and see if she has more questions.
Sure. Well, Asad, before we let you go, I want to ask a little bit, these are pretty difficult questions that you're posing and issues that you're presenting to us. And what made you think that students would be part of the community that could address these problems?
Yeah, so thank you, Diana. That's a great question. In order to address that question, I think I'll have to kind of tell you my own story. So what I was telling you before the slides, I mean, that's kind of more of an impersonal account of what the ground reality or the stark reality of healthcare or lack thereof in Pakistan and other LMICs is. But when I talk about personally, when I started working in Pakistan, that was about, I think, 6.5, 7 years back. When I moved from the US, after spending 15 years in the US, training over there, working over there, being very comfortable in first world delivery of healthcare, and then moving back to Pakistan this time around as a professional, I kind of felt that I felt frustrated, not because the ability to manage patients at AKU wasn't there for me. It was actually. I think AKU helped me kind of transition into a local healthcare management system quite well. But what I was still getting frustrated about was that, are we, just by like myself personally, working in the emergency room, what can I even make a dent in anything really? The problems are humongous, they're huge. And then at the end of the day, then, I mean, how much of a difference can, an ER doc really make? I can do my ER shifts and I can teach residents and I can train residents and so on and so forth, and I can work with students. But then, and then I started thinking about, is there a way that one kind of flips the cart on its head? And so, can you look at things differently? We're not trained as healthcare professionals. We're really not trained to think differently. We tend to go by what evidence-based medicine approaches are, which is a good approach. I'm not against that, but it gets you to start becoming complacent as well. So, and in a country like Pakistan, where you've got to be constantly questioning what you're doing, how you're delivering care, is it cost effective? And you're in a very good healthcare establishment like AKU, and then you have patients that are across a huge economic spectrum. So those kinds of philosophical questions at times kind of started bothering me, and so I started discussing these things with students, because I think students are kind of like uncarved blocks. They're undifferentiated or de-differentiated in certain ways. Although still AKU Medical College, I mean, there's a certain way of doing things as well. I'm a grad of AKU myself, but just those kinds of probing questions of students was amazing, because I wasn't the one who was asking; they were asking me, right? So I wasn't a teacher in that scenario. I was the student, because they started coming up with interesting ideas, and they were very simple, straightforward things. Can we share some thoughts around something or another that they'd seen in the ER? And it wasn't always about managing a patient. It was just, okay, what if we were to do things like this instead of like protocol A? What if we use algorithm B or something else, or something that nobody has thought about? I'm like, yeah, why not? What stops you? And though we'd get into a critical discourse, and so I think that safe space for ideation is what we were getting at. And we did not realize that for several more years. We did not really design CCIT from that perspective as an innovation incubation hub. It was just a safe space for ideation, perhaps. I think one of the most important things was to have fun and not feel pressured that you had to make a difference even.
And yet, one of the things we're going to try to convey through in the webinar today is that, you know, there is a purpose to what we're undertaking, and there's a sort of a trajectory that the participants in this ecosystem kind of go through. And so, Salim, I'm just kind of curious if you were to comment from your perspective downstream in the innovation ecosystem at AKU, where you've seen some student-driven creativity pay off. Could you just illustrate one or two examples from your perspective of where you've seen this all work out for the better?
Absolutely, yeah, we'll be happy to. So what really comes to my mind is, I think it was first hackathon, Asad, that you had organized about 3-4 years ago. And out of that, this Breath Hat idea came about. And then today, we have actually a patent around it that we recently got approved. And that is a low-cost ventilator that Asad was talking about, that it is not replacing an ICU ventilator, but it is filling a gap that is already there, no matter what type of ventilators you have or you don't. That is ambulatory care ventilators, so that it regulates airflow while patient is in transit. So one very good example that, and then there are so many other examples that we actually, Asad and I, we are working on to translate those ideas into some intellectual property and then turn it to something that we can monetize.
All right, so let's turn then to Walid, who is, you know, I think both an innovator himself and also as co-director of CCIT, a recent student responsible for guiding student innovation. Walid, tell us a little bit about your journey and how you got involved in participating in innovation as a major force, a major part of your work, as opposed to going the more traditional pathway of a medical college student.
Oh, that's a heavy loaded question. But first off, can I say I am so impressed with the diversity in chat. We're seeing so many people from across the country, across the world, and such interesting thoughts being shared already. So I'm already blown away. I think this is fantastic, and please do keep talking to us. I'm literally reading every message as it comes, and it's so nice to have this, you know, even in COVID days, to have this connection. But for me personally, I think my journey kind of started in at AKU as a medical student, and it was I vaguely remember I was in my final year, and you know I was always the kid that wanted to solve problems. I'm a video game fanatic. You know, I like solving quests, getting games done. It's like I just wasn't happy with status quo, and I do see what I saw then was so many things that were done had been done for the past 10 years and nothing had changed. You know, there were guidelines, we said, you know, do A, B, C, and literally 0 to 1 people were maybe asking how to change that, how to question it, or why it was even being done that way. So there was a lot of following where nobody was leading. And I think that's where my first issue came about, and that's when I met Asad, and you know, things kind of changed in perspective from there. I started to meet regularly with this group. We organized the first hackathon, and then, you know, the rest is history. I then went on to become the first employee for CCIT, worked for 3 years as co-director, and then eventually moved here to the US. So it's been a journey and a half. And I think it's so great to see students finally have an opportunity to to enjoy and have fun, and you know, do what they do best, question everything. Like that's really the core of technology. That's really the core of innovation. There's so many diverse people within Karachi. There's, you know, like somebody mentioned in chat, there's software engineers, there's also all of these groups that we just never meet. And my goal, at least at CCIT, was to bring these people together. Like even within AQ, people just weren't meeting. My goal is to just get them to butt heads with each other and just talk, because a lot of magic really does happen if you put different groups in one room. And that's what we saw with hackathons. That's what we saw with everything else.
Terrific. And I really want to underscore as well how fun it is in the chat to see the comments coming through. Please don't forget to chat to all panelists and attendees. Otherwise, only the panelists see your comments. So choose the all panelists and attendees as the little pull down menu there. And I can see some of your former classmates and colleagues from CCIT are with us as well. So that's fun. And the point about connections, I'm gonna ask Shaista to come in here a little bit in a moment and comment about seed ventures. But one of the things that I've observed evolve at AKU in our innovation work has been this movement from units that are doing innovation work on their own to much more connectivity and crossover between these units. And one of the things we did, I saw a comment in the chat just where somebody was asking a little bit about how it all functions together. And not participating with us today, but we should mention the role of our innovation concierge, Rafi Ahmed, who is working very hard to be an explicit point of connection between all the different groups that are working on various aspects of the innovation ecosystem. And I think that's an important element of success. But Shaista, could I ask you as the CEO of Seed Ventures to tell us a little bit about how you fit into this picture as a company, what you do, and also your connection with AKU and what you're undertaking right now in that regard?
Thank you, Diana. Hello, everybody. Really nice to be here. And I think this is an excellent conversation. Just to give you people an introduction about Seed, we are an ecosystem development and an impact investment organization. And we're endeavoring to work on the enterprise and the social enterprise landscape in the country. How do we fit into the equation? So, when I say ecosystem development, essentially a large part of that is developing a culture within the country to nurture, to support, to grow entrepreneurship or social enterprise. And part of that is supporting innovation, because innovation is key to enterprise sustainability. If you do not innovate, you will die over a period of time. And to grow, you must innovate. How does that kind of tie in with the CCIT and its manifesto and what it intends to do in the larger run? From a social impact or social entrepreneurship perspective, if we're talking about impact and we're talking about the healthcare industry, the question we need to ask is healthcare really healthcare if it is not accessible by the masses? So, that's a question that comes to mind. And Asad just showed that slide with respect to that ventilator. And it made me think, that is healthcare or the systems or the processes really serving the purpose for what they were intended if it's not reaching to the farthest corners. So, that is where healthcare innovation comes in. It is about developing better products or services or processes and systems that make it accessible and available to a much larger audience at a much lower price. That is the general idea. That is the social impact that I believe we're all reaching out to. And that is why this is of such great interest to us as an organization, because from an ethos point of view, it is tied in from a social impact perspective. And of course, then innovation is extremely important. That's what we talk about with our entrepreneurs and our social entrepreneurs, that if you want to develop business sustainability, you have to think about improving your products and services. And the other thing is something, Walid mentioned it, and it is about bringing different groups of people under one particular umbrella. Software engineers talking to doctors, you have people from the manufacturing industry talking to medical students about how to develop better products, better services. And that's the conversation, the kind of conversations that we need. And at a student level, because they're not as jaded as we are with life or with doing the same thing over and over again, it's just fascinating the kind of fresh perspectives that can come out when you put all these people together in a room and see the kind of magic that can be created. So, because of all of those facets, this is very interesting and somewhat, I would say, kind of close to our hearts, because it's just the kind of language we speak. It's the kind of ethos that we kind of propagate when we're working with people. And yeah, so I'm really genuinely happy to be here today.
It's interesting to see how this is all evolving together. And Faraz, maybe I could ask you to join the conversation with a little bit about what got you involved in this whole effort to found Seed to begin with.
Thank you, Diana. First of all, thank you so much for making us part of this fantastic conversation. Well, one of the reasons I thought of creating Seed was because I was sick and tired of the commercial capital that was available in the market. My previous life was I was a banker, so my apologies for that. But it taught me a lot. But there was a lot that I realized that life has to offer, and we can offer life. And in 2008 and 2009, I came across this term of social enterprise and social impact. And that kind of struck a chord. And I said, there is a way, there is a mechanism through which you can live well, and you can do good for the society, the community, and the wider world. And that was the foundation of Seed. Over the past decade, we have been very fortunate to work with some fantastic individuals and institutions to actually build two sides of Seed. One is the impact investment side, and the other one is the ecosystem development side. And the impact investment side is basically saying that, guys, we are not here for commercial returns only. All right. You have an idea that can actually improve upon a social challenge. We would consider that as a rate of return, that we would consider that as a payback rather than conventional commercial return. And the concept of patient capital that is slowly catching up was something that we actually explored in 2008 and 2009. And that was something very, very close to our ethos. Our recent conversations and streams of working together with CCIT and AKU has been phenomenal, because in healthcare, the AKU's endeavors and CCIT's innovation mindset is something really, really refreshing. And you need this kind of an approach, not only on systemic level, not only on institutional level, but on individual level. And that was the unique bit about CCIT and the approach of AKU, that we're talking to students, we're talking to individuals, we're talking about innovations in their processes, we're talking about innovations in their communities. And it's a hope mindset rather than a challenge mindset. It's a more solution-oriented conversation that we are looking at with CCIT and AKU, rather than a problem-oriented. And that is that exciting bit that has actually allowed us to develop, we're in the process of developing content as well as conversations. So many fantastic comments. And honestly, a few of them gave me goosebumps, because that, there's a lot of banter going on as well, but this is the true hope, not only for Pakistan, but across the world. These are the young minds, these are the young souls that is going to change the mindsets and the world. And it's an absolute privilege to be part of this conversation.
So I want to pause there for a moment, because we can all really understand the importance of having that social impact, and we're involved in it. We see it happening. We want it to be amplified and accelerated. But Asad and Walid in particular, but maybe others would like to comment on this too. Could you describe a little bit the importance of the work that you're doing to actually open up the minds of young people in Pakistan, or in particular medical education? What's happening there that you see in the way of changing the way young people think?
Walid, do you want to take that first, or you want me to go?
You can go first.
Okay. So great question, right? So what are we doing? And I think Diana, so we keep changing direction as well. So if I were to tell you what we were doing 5 years ago or 6 years ago, may not be the same things that we're doing now. So with that caveat, because we're constantly thinking of what's something new that we can bring into this space of medical, quote unquote, medical education, and we look at medical education very broadly. So it's not just medical students; we also have nursing students. In fact, some of our events initiatives have been much more popular amongst nursing students versus medical students. And that was a great learning experience for us as well. And then we've had students who are more professional students, if I may. And the most recent initiative has been our Innovation Fellowship, with its different kind of student, if I may. So, but if we were to focus on medical education and how are we getting them to open their minds, I think something that very simple that we offer to them is that they do not have to worry about their day-to-day coursework, for example, right? So because they already have a lot of pressure of their own medical curriculum or the nursing curriculum. So we're saying, you could leave that aside. Over here, there's nothing that you've got to write something for us, or you've got to have a project or anything like that, and you've got to score something or grade something, and then we'll give you something. So I think that kind of takes away a lot of their pressure, and they're able to kind of share ideas. And I keep talking about that safe space for ideation. And sometimes these ideas are really vague and they're abstract, and we love those ideas as well, or those thoughts. So the uncarved block I mentioned earlier, right? So the more basic the thought, it's fine for me, even if it's a very basic thought. We're like, okay, it doesn't matter. Don't worry. You don't have to be an expert in anything. You just need to have an interest in perhaps making a difference, or doing things differently, and so on and so forth. And then we take away that hierarchical nature of medical education, which exists pretty much the world over, in my opinion, and saying, okay, doesn't matter, nobody's a teacher or a student over here, we are here to learn. So those kinds of, like, I guess, guidelines, without really overtly stating that they are guidelines, they help people bring the crazy and wild ideas. Nobody gets dinged. In fact, the crazier the idea, the better it is for us. It really gives us a high as well. And then people like Walid, who keep me grounded and keep me on a, I wouldn't say straight track, but actually it's more of a twisted track as well, because I forget at times what my age is, because am I a millennial or a post millennial or someone? Because I don't know. I mean, these kids, they bring a whole lot of I don't know. I mean, it's another level. It makes me crazy at times as well. So I don't know if I've answered your question, but medical education, looking at it not from the didactic or pedagogical perspective, really looking at it as something that we can all have fun with.
So, Walid, I'll ask you to comment too on sort of your humanist kind of learning experience, but maybe you could also comment on innovation and failure, and what you learned as a student about failing, because I'm sure coming into AKU, you probably, I'm guessing, had the mindset that it was all about success, success, success. And when you're an innovator, you have to be kind of comfortable with the concept of failure too. So could you talk to us a little bit about how you might have gone through that awakening?
Yeah, it really wasn't easy. I think a lot of it has to do with resilience. Like you said, everybody that comes into AKU comes in with that mindset of being able to go from A to B to C, and there's a clear set out path for you. But I think for me, what was different was I enjoyed failing. I think more than anybody else, I think I like doing things that don't work. As like Asad said, it gives me a kind of a high. I like things that didn't work entirely. I learned something, try something else the very next day. And I think that's where technology and that's where innovation comes in. And I hope that's what the rest of my peers also feel like. It really is very, very exciting to fail. Trust me on this. There is no harm. Nobody's going to hold you accountable for failing, but they may hold you accountable for not trying. So it's really more of a mindset, but it's been a journey and a half, I must say.
So Shaista, could you also comment on this? How do you as a company, handle the balance between innovation and its potential and making decisions around what's worth pursuing and what's not?
The way we work with, well, yeah, so, I'm going to agree with, within our organization, we have a culture and the culture is that you have to try and it doesn't matter. I mean, when it's not about the end product. Faraz has this saying, and he'll probably agree with me, that it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to fail, but it's important to learn from what has happened, right? So, if you're not going to try, you're not going to learn. So we have that kind of culture within our organizations. And also when we are delivering programs on the ground and we're working with our beneficiaries, it is like Asad said, you need to provide them like a safe space for ideation. Instead of them having to think that, it has to be right. I think you kind of need to remove that paradigm and you need to just ask them to try first, good or bad, whatever it is. The objective is that they need to sort of get the wheels rolling. And sometimes that's usually where you have the biggest challenge. It's actually the very first step. So, whatever we're trying to propagate within the organization or outside, we try to do the same with our beneficiaries. So, yeah.
All right, and Faraz, I'll ask you to come in here as well, but I also want to invite any of the panelists, if there's something in the chat or the Q&A that you'd like to comment on, now's an opportunity. Right after Faraz, I'll give open floor for that. But Faraz, would you like to comment a little bit around this issue of how you make decisions in innovation environments?
A lot of times situations make you make those decisions. And like Walid said and Shaista said that, the harder the situation is, the more your innovative brains and resources are kind of pushed. So I'm more of a, although work has taught me to be proactive, but I think sometimes your instinct, your reactive decision making actually brings out the best set of innovations as well, because it is really pushed. Coming back to your comment about one of the comments that Raheel Qureshi, I just read, said that that they've actually conducted a fantastic innovation program at a leading bank. This just suddenly, not exactly suddenly, but this is the beautiful time where cross sectors and different industries are coming together in a collaborative form to actually explore and find solutions for social challenges. And like a bank, a hospital, a development sector institution, and a not-for-profit in a small community. And there are hundreds of examples. So today, the time that we're living in, not only be at the backdrop of COVID, but just the time we're living in, this is the best time for innovation, where the conventional mindsets of, oh, we know we are from this industry and we are not going to go to another industry, or we will not speak to another industry simply because they are different. That framework is being cracked. And no one is kind of believing in that old set models. Now, if you're from the tea industry and I'm from, let's say, an industrious fabric industry, we will be actually sit together and find a synergetic opportunity for a potential challenge that could be converted into a solution. So as individuals, I think in terms of market connectivity and bringing different stakeholders on the table, it's a brilliant time to be.
Well, this is a moment then for a slightly different question. And I'm not sure which one of you would like to answer this, but I'm always thinking how remarkable it is that the average age of Pakistan's population is so young. And I'd like to ask you to comment a little bit about this issue of sort of hierarchical power structures. And CCIT, I think, has done such a remarkable job in upending the norms there, so that Asad, as director and a professor in the university's medical college, isn't necessarily the one to call the shots at CCIT, and he'll tell you that himself. But for anybody on the panel, I'd be curious to have your thoughts on how to leverage this tremendous capacity that Pakistan has of up and coming tech savvy young people who want to make a change. What advice would you give them for going about it immediately, rather than waiting until they're 20, 30 years into their career?
I think I can take that on. And that's such a great question, honestly. Something I hold very dear to my heart. And for me, there's really two issues here. The first is the hierarchical approach that's inherently built into organizations, departments, and it's worked so far, and that's perfectly okay. But I think going forward, we're seeing a lot of change. We're seeing a lot of industries taking on this culture of anybody coming up with ideas, anybody running with it, and the person from the bottom making it to the top fairly easily. And I think the other issue then it eventually leads to is the people that are working under someone, supposedly so, are so afraid of trying, are so afraid of failing, that they end up not trying. There's so many boundaries put in place where they just don't want to, or they are so afraid of it. And I think that's the biggest weakness that the hierarchy puts in place, where even if you have ideas, you just don't want to put them forward. And that I think is probably the first biggest hindrance, because if we don't bring it to the table, there's no way we can test it and fail, because the first one is going to fit. It's an absolute given. And that just that fear of being rebuked, failing, something critical happening, losing your job, it's you need that sense of security. At least that's my take.
Can I just, sorry, go on.
Go ahead. That's fine.
Just a quick one. I think Walid, I agree with you, but there's a slight aspect. I don't think that the typical bureaucratic mindset will be replaced so easily, unfortunately, in a country like Pakistan. Yes, a sea change is coming. I agree. Okay, but the bureaucratic structures that are in place, it's going to take at least a generation or two to actually see, a majority of youth taking, lead. One great encouraging shift that we have seen is women leadership in Pakistan. And that is amazing. And that is coming out of meritocracy. And it is not coming out of being, let's say, gender sensitive or inclusive and all that. It is simply because women are leading, and they're much, much more talented in a lot of spaces, and they're just coming out straight up now. So that is in the startup culture, if you see only, you would see a lot of women in leadership across the board. But for me to actually see that this amazing opportunity we'll be able to leverage in times to come, I think it's going to take a generation and two. Well, it's an oldies view. I could be wrong. Let me just take it from the outset. But I'm not being pessimistic at all over here. But it's just unfortunate. I think this should happen much quicker. But unfortunately, the structures are such that it would take. The oldies would want to actually. They want to remain relevant. They want to deny that. The fact that youth is more exuberant and they've got better ideas and energy. They want to stick to those seats and all that. So people like us will be obsolete very soon.
So the chat's alive now with questions about women and gender in innovation. Salim, maybe I could ask you to come in on this and comment a little bit about some of the innovations you see that are gender relevant as well, or anything else that's on your mind.
Yeah, that's true. Thank you, Anna. So I was just going back to what Walid has said and then Faraz commented on. I think you're so right, Walid, when you said that people are so afraid of failing and then losing their jobs. So one of the initiatives, or one of the way that we work within AKU, is we actually celebrate our failures like we celebrate our successes. And the reason for that is so that people are not afraid. In fact, in all of my projects that we take on, we have a person, a role. The role of that person is to kill that idea. Just kill that idea, because I want somebody from within my team to kill that idea rather than somebody from outside, so that I can avoid investing resources. And also it promotes that level of confidence that you just talked about that we don't have. So it helps people develop a sense that, well, first of all, whatever I have to say, it has some value. And also, I may be wrong, and there's nothing wrong in being wrong, right? So that's the idea, and that is the culture. And for us, going back to what you said, you're right. It'll take at least a generation or two, but we got to start it. We got to start it today. We were supposed to start yesterday. So we all have to start, and then we need to see how we can expedite that process.
Absolutely agreed.
Asad, can I ask you to comment on specifically this issue around gender and innovation?
Yes, I can see that there are a lot of comments and questions and ideas being thrown out there about gender and entrepreneurship and women entrepreneurs. And also, thank you panel. Well, thank you audience for actually raising that very important point. And so Diana, and just for the panel over here, as well as for the audience, that we do intend, and part of this, I think the innovation committee and the webinar series, we do intend on having a specific session, if not more, on gender and entrepreneurship. So, because I think at this point, just to briefly get into it, and there's so much more to it that I think giving it like at least a completely specific session around that would be doing justice to it. Perhaps even that won't be doing justice to it because there's so much. So I don't know, Diana. I mean, what can I say? So we do understand that women entrepreneurs and women innovators tend to have the shorter end of the stick anyways, because the economics of it is such that men, perhaps even in, and maybe if I were to like reflect on the culture over here in Pakistan, men are able to make those mistakes, perhaps even in innovation and entrepreneurship. It's easier for them, perhaps, because the family or the culture is going to be, yeah, that's fine. He's trying something new, he's trying something different, so perhaps it's okay. But just imagine if it's a young woman, innovator, entrepreneur, for her to go out into the community and out somewhere and says that she has a startup, and then it's okay for her to fail. I think there's going to be a huge difference between how people will take one scenario versus the other. So I don't have the answer as to how we're going to fix this. I think it's important to recognize that this is an issue, and then we can do something about it then, right? So what is CCIT doing? I think it's taken us a few years to realize that we've got to design things in our initiatives or as part of the team, whether it's the core team or the fellows that we onboard or other things of that nature, that we are cognizant of having women on board as well. So I'm not saying that one has to have a specific percentage. I don't know what the magic number is here, but just being aware that yes, maybe maybe we need to be a bit more flexible around this and try to be a bit more gender parity, if I may. And so that's one thought. You design these things at the front end versus re-engineering things. Another very interesting thing, Diana, is that in all our events, whether, particularly hackathons, so we have a 3 or a 4 year experience now, 4 year experience of hackathons, around 8 hackathons that we've done at AKU. In all our events, I can very easily tell you that we've had more women hackers. And so that's, and the young women, so they're in their 20s for the most part. These are data that we've actually published now as well. And so I think this is really interesting. I think we need to really delve into this as to why is that, and how can we kind of leverage this to make that gender gap, to fill that gender gap a bit. So that's just another thought. I don't know if and I think we really need to have a more systematic approach to understanding entrepreneurship and gender.
So I've got my eye a little bit on the time here, and I want to ask a crystal ball kind of question of all of you, whoever would be interested in gazing into the crystal ball and imagining, where do you see the promise of innovation over the next foreseeable future, particularly around some of the big issues of the day? Do you see teams, innovators, entrepreneurs rallying to particular causes like climate change, like water, like energy, mental health, amid the COVID environment? If you wanted to, maybe Shaista, just start us off by telling us a little bit about what you
I'd
see.
love to add to that. I think, sorry. So, you know, the younger generation, going back to that earlier question and kind of entwining it with what you've just asked, is there in our experience and how we're interacting with social enterprises now and the younger micro enterprises, they're definitely much more aware of their environment, and they're very, very vocal about the challenges that the world is going through right now, whether they're mental health issues or health issues in general, or poverty or livelihood crisis. They're very, very vocal about it. And I think that, it's important that we're having this conversation here today, because it encourages the students that are part of this audience right now to start thinking about problems in a different way, to start thinking about working with people outside their spheres of expertise. You know, it's important for the doctors who are part of the attendees also here now to think of themselves as, it's kind of think of themselves beyond the doctor boundary or the healthcare practitioner boundary. I see a lot of collaborative work in the future. That's the only way we'll be able to deal with all the challenges that Pakistan is facing right now, for young people to work together. And I think it's going to happen because they're definitely more aware of these things and more pushed to make a change as compared to how we were, when we were their age.
And Walid, you've just put a wonderful comment in, and that was exactly going to be my next question to all of you. As we think about these grand challenges facing us, is how do you do it in resource constrained settings? And you've made an interesting point that sometimes the resource constraint is what generates the innovation.
And that's something I hold so dear to my heart. I come from a very middle-class family. I've never had the resources to be able to start businesses with 1 lakh, 2 lakh, 3 lakh rupees. Most of the projects that I've started with have been with nothing. I've invested zero money in. It's just something that I do on the side just because I enjoy doing it so much. And sure, it may be a high, low risk, low reward, but that's where you'll try. You'll get your feet wet. You'll stop being afraid, and you really go from there. I personally don't think we're tied because of money. I personally feel because I didn't have a lot of money, I went above and beyond to try and think how I can do this even with even less money. So for me, it's been a blessing in disguise. And I think that's what people really should take home. It's, please don't think about money as a hindrance. It's really a means to an end.
As an ex-banker, an advice: do it with other people's money.
And how best would you tell those that are participating today to access that?
I think, as I said earlier, Diana, thank you for this question. We're in a time where access to capital, access to finance is more readily available compared to previous generations. So there is development sector capital available in forms of grants. There is philanthropic capital available. There is government capital available. There is venture capital that is available. There is seed and there's angel capital that is available. There is friends and family rounds that is available. So, and it is available all across the board. So whenever we go to universities and we actually do incubations and acceleration programs, any kid or any enterprise that says, when I asked them the question that, what if you don't get the money, what are you going to do for the next round? And if they have to think even for a minute, I lose interest in that simply because there is a huge market out there. So even if you're not getting finance, you have the ability to sell your product or a service organically. So that organic growth option, simply because of the need of the market, is very much there. So even if there is no capital, although there is much more capital available, you still can make it. So good times for really, really serious social entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs.
You're making a terrific case for the more elderly crowd to be strong mentors, really, and showing these youngsters where they can go to access all the things you're talking about. That comes with experience and shows that mentoring might be a really key component of savvy entrepreneurship and innovation too. Salim, just before we wrap up, would you like to add anything else before we turn back to Asad for final comments?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So I was just reflecting on what will drive innovation in years to come. And I was thinking the two things that come to my mind. One is people with passion and advancement in technology. If you can combine these two together, that is your innovation in years to come. So you need to have passion for what you do or what you're looking for. And then you need to have means and ways to actually use technology and advancement in technology to actually do that. So I think that is what I was thinking. And fantastic conversation, everyone. It was great to hear from everyone. And also in chat, a lot of very good questions. So thank you for those questions and your engagement. This is a very good start for our series of webinars. With that, I'll hand it over to Asad.
Okay, thank you, Salim. So Diana, I believe you're asking me for some wrap-up points.
Yeah, I think so, please.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I don't know. I mean, this has been great. Actually, this has been great. I think like people are kind of generally thinking as well, the brilliant comments and brilliant questions, and we can go on and on, but I think this is really the start. So people should, if they're serious about this, if they're seriously interested, then please get in touch with us, and we're very happy to continue the conversation. And doesn't have to be me, just doesn't have to be anybody from this particular panel. You know how to get in touch with other people from CCIT or from CE or whoever. Your friendly neighborhood innovator entrepreneur could be your chacha, mama, bhai, behen, I don't know, nana, nani, whoever. Just catch hold of them and talk to them. Talk to people. I think it's really empathizing. Would be one thing. Empathizing with people's need for doing something different. So innovating, right? So we're empathizing with women. Young women innovators and entrepreneurs. So we're empathizing with young students who are interested in doing something different or want to look at medical education, what they're doing, what they're being taught differently. So we're empathizing with them. We're empathizing with nursing students. We're empathizing with engineering students and business students. How can they be part of this? How can they help improve the health and well-being of human beings, right? So it is a very interdisciplinary environment that we're talking about. So the three guiding principles of CCIT, if I may, which we started off with, and we've been true to it in spirit and in action as well, has been non-hierarchical, transgenerational, so the young and the old together, and interdisciplinary. And we've stuck to it. And I think we'll keep doing that. We're all inclusive. We're not exclusive at all. So get in touch. And so the crystal ball kind of a thing that Diana mentioned earlier, and I think the ethos I've already kind of mentioned, interdisciplinarity of it, it's going to be exceedingly important. And the young and the old have to work together. And I think Diana mentioned that talking to older people, or somebody did. And it's equally important for the young people not to forget that the older people have the experience. And so go talk to them as well. About failing, I think it's exceedingly important, and we've discussed it quite a bit. But it's about failing and failing fast, but then pivoting as well. It's not just about you keep failing one thing after another, but it's also pivoting. So in other words, it could be something like intelligent fast failure, as some people have described it. And if you're really interested in some of the content around innovation, creativity, and entrepreneurship, so we are in the process of curating all of this experience. We're working with Seed Ventures as well. And those are the exciting things that we've been working on. And if you're interested, we're going to put all of this out there in the public domain at some point. A lot of our work has already been published in biomedical journals. And if you want to read about it through the evidence lens, get in touch. And that's about it from me. Thank you, Diana.
You know, it's such a shame we have to end these kinds of conversations because we've only just touched on all the issues that we all care about so passionately, but it's been a really engaging conversation. And I would like to say a special thanks to all those of you that have joined today, including a whole range of our contacts and some new people too. So that's really important to us and valuable to have your the range of participation that we've seen today. We're going to keep in touch with you because by virtue of you having registered and been with us today, we can easily reach you again for the next webinar that we'll be offering soon. And so don't worry about whether we're going to catch you again. We will be back in touch. So thanks everybody for joining us. Ariba, you've done a terrific job of making all the chat functions and Q&A functions work well. Thanks for your contribution today. And to Salim and Asad and Walid and Shaista and Faraz, thank you for your time and for your commitment to the issues. And we'll look forward to seeing you all again soon in the flesh, if not back online here for more Zoom sessions. Thanks, everybody. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Diana. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Diana. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Diana. Thanks all.
Take care. Bye-bye.